Hey everyone, welcome to another time limit audio edition. Today we're going to be running down and giving some quick thoughts on New Japan Pro Wrestling's new beginning in Nagoya card, which took place on Saturday night. Heading into this card, I was saying this is a show which is going to be skippable for a lot of people, not a very notable one when it comes to the headlines that will be coming out of it. And I mean, it kind of lived up to those expectations. We're going to go into the whole card here, but just right off the bat, I want to say there was a main event which I think was actually, all things considered, pretty entertaining. We saw Tama Tonga put his never openweight championship on the line against Evil. And this was a match where, heading into it, I think basically everybody knew this was going to be Tama Tonga dropping his belt to Evil just a few weeks after he won it at Wrestle Kingdom with a great performance against Shingo Takagi. Now, the reason for this sort of knowledge that this knowing that everybody had that he was going to drop the belt is that Tonga said this is his last month with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and based off how today's event went, it kind of seems like today was the last date for Tama Tonga. This was his send-off show, and this performance, while it wasn't incredible, it was a decent send-off performance. So obviously one thing you're going to have to consider when talking about this match is that there is always going to be, in a House of Torture match, the House of Torture shenanigans, and that's going to take something away from it. But those matches are salvageable. So you know the way this started was, of course, the House of Torture type stuff you would usually see with a brawl breaking out after a referee was downed in the match. So, House of Torture, the whole faction came out and started brawling, and in for the save was El Phantasmo, Hikuleo, Desperado, and Jado. We sort of had this like fake out in the main event where just 2 minutes and 36 seconds into the match, the referee threw it out because of all the chaos of the brawl and everything. But then Tama Tonga said, "Hey, listen, you have your guys here, I have my guys here. Let's run this back right now under lumberjack rules." That's exactly what they did. In their second match, they ended up going a total of 18 minutes. And this was a pretty enjoyable match. I think that, when you have the challenge of knowing the crowd basically knowing for sure what the result was going to be, with it being pretty obvious that Tonga was going to have to drop his belt to end his New Japan run, it's hard to sort of get people too invested, but they were able to get this match to be close enough that it was, the crowd was behind it, at least more behind it than another match earlier in the card, which we're going to get to in just a few minutes. They were behind it, they were invested, they were cheering for Tonga, and it became entertaining. The finishing sequence sort of had this like repeated spot over and over with someone at ringside using a weapon when a wrestler was near the ropes. This started with Tonga getting hit in the head by a chair by a House of Torture henchman after he came out of a roll-up pin attempt. He came springing out of that roll-up pin attempt right into the ropes where he took the chair shot to the head. That same spot happened to Evil just a few moments later. Coming off the ropes, he took a kendo stick to the head. I think it was from Jado. Um, the crowd seemed to like this. The Closer to the finishing sequence, there were some counters, some finishing moves that were countered. Evil was able to stop a stun gun or a gun stun. Tama Tonga hit another gun stun of his for a near fall. He followed this up with a DST pile driver. And while it seemed like that would be like a finishing sequence, the referee was pulled out of the ring by Dick Togo, causing the count to stop. Dick then went inside the ring and choked Tonga with a wire that he usually has. And since there was a brawl outside the ring with henchmen, including El Phantasmo doing a dive, nobody was able to run in and do the save. Eventually, Jado hit Togo with a kendo stick, and then Tonga took Togo out of the situation with a gun stun. He tried for a pile driver on Evil, but Evil was able to escape. Ren Narita near the ropes once again hit Tonga with a push-up bar, and then Evil used this moment and capitalized on it by hitting his everything is Evil to win and capture the never openweight championship. So yeah, I mean, this was a fun match. Obviously, there's a certain ceiling to how good House of Torture matches can be, considering how many sort of like interference spots you get in them. But they did a good job at putting over Tonga here and making it look like he was going to come close to retaining his belt. But obviously, we all knew he was going to have to drop it. The crowd fell dead for this Evil victory. I feel like that's sort of a trend with House of Torture wins, that whenever House of Torture wins a big match, even if the crowd did find a way to get into it at some point, the second the result actually happens, they just sort of fall silent. Like, some matches you get that applause afterwards because it was a really great match and the result was fun or whatever. But House of Torture just gets that silence, and I don't know if it's because they're a heel group and you don't want to cheer heel groups, or if it's just because people just don't really have interest. Tama Tonga, since it was his send off, he got his moment in the ring afterward. I mean, I wrote about this in my article the other day, but he, whether you like him or not, because I know he was not always the most consistent or like top billing type wrestler in the promotion. However you feel about him, he had an incredibly long run with the promotion, so him leaving is a pretty big deal for him, for his colleagues, for a lot of people. I wrote in the column the other day that he had over 1,000 matches for the promotion over 15 years, and during that time, 15 title reigns. So when he was in the ring, he said, quote, "New Japan fans, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for giving me a home. Thank you for giving me a chance to know you. I love you." He continued his comments backstage saying, quote, "Where would I be if it wasn't for New Japan? Where would I be if it wasn't for New Japan fans? I tell you where I wouldn't be right here." 15 years later, and everything I've learned, not just about wrestling, but the Japanese culture, the people, the fans, work, it has been the greatest experience of my life, and I'll never forget it. It will be with me everywhere I go, and it will be seen anywhere I go. I love you all. This was, a nice send off for him. It was a better match than I think my expectation was heading into it. I thought this could have been, real sludge that wasn't going to be fun. Uh, it- Not to say that it was this great match, but I did enjoy it. It was this weird middle ground where it's like, I'm not going to say people should seek it out and watch it, but I'm also going to say, like, I'm not going to say it was an awful match either. The co-main event of the night was El Phantasmo and Hikuleo putting their strong tag team titles on the line against the duo of Chase Owens and Kenta. This was a match which was set up at New Year Dash with Chase Owens doing a run-in on Phantasmo and Hikuleo and then calling them out for a tag match. Um, I've written before that this is not a match I was interested in at all, basically, because Owens and Kenta are a duo who've had nothing going for them for, months. They haven't had any big performances or big wins or anything like that, and they're not actually an established tag team. So for them to just sort of come up out of nowhere, they're not even really like plausible challengers. And I only realized this week that they were challenging for the strong tag team championships and not the IWGP belts, which just seems like a weird sort of way to devalue the match because you have this team which has no chance of earning the belts, and we know that, but then you make it even less important by making it so that they're challenging for belts that don't even matter. I mean, maybe the logic was that they were being put in a match with lower quality belts so that there is a possibility that they could earn them because they're like less important, so they could toss the belts around. But at the same time, they're still facing the most successful team in the promotion right now, so beating them would be a huge deal and would probably put them in an IWGP title match. This was a match which went how long did it go here? It went 21 minutes and it was just slow the entire time. It never really gained a lot of momentum. I don't think the crowd really got behind it. And I don't know if that's because of how it wasn't really an intriguing matchup or it just wasn't good. The match itself just didn't really get going in a way that I thought was interesting, and that was unfortunate in my opinion. I mean, it was um I don't know. I like the team of Phantasmo and Hikuleo, so it sucks to see them in a match that just doesn't really deliver. Fortunately, it is on kind of like a low importance card. The finishing sequence I thought was kind of neat. Phantasmo did a moonsault onto Kenta, and then did a springboard DT onto Owens on the ground. That's not part of the finishing sequence actually. No, sorry. The finishing sequence which I thought was cool. Um, Phantasmo did a super kick onto Chase Owens for a near fall. Kenta tried to break up the pin by doing a double stomp off the top rope, but Phantasmo was able to move out of the way of this double stomp, and this caused Kenta to actually double stomp his tag partner Owens, kind of showing that, that the thing that the English commentary tried to show, which I thought was neat storytelling in a sense, was that Kenta and Owens didn't have good chemistry because they weren't actually like a team, and I guess it showed in this sequence. Um, Hikuleo was able to hit a choke slam, and then at the same time, Phantasmo scored his CR2 on Owens for a finish. I wasn't big on this match. It was low stakes, and it sort of played out like a low stakes match, unfortunately. And, you know, like I said before, I like Phantasmo, I like Hikuleo, so it was kind of unfortunate to see that. The third title match, the first of the evening, was Taiji Ishimori and Great-O-Khan facing off for the New Japan King of Pro Wrestling Championship. I do owe a bit of an apology because when I first wrote about this match, I thought it was just a 10-minute scramble match, like we saw at New Year Dash in the four-way for the title. And, I thought it was just a match where it's like whoever gets the last pinfall or submission wins it, and that's it. Now, a 10-minute scramble was part of the stipulation, but it was much more confusing than that. So, Ishimori Ring Fit match, it was a match where essentially they did 10 minutes of wrestling, but split up by short workout sessions. So, how it worked is they did 3 minutes of wrestling, then 30 seconds of workout, then 3 minutes of wrestling, 30 seconds of workout. They did that one more time. And then the 10th minute was just the final minute of the match before it was finished. The stipulation was going to be that if no pinfall or submission took place at all, Ishimori would retain. And they said specifically, quote, last person to hold the title is the champion heading out of that match. And those specific words become important later on. So, yeah, they did this the 3 minutes of wrestling and the workout in between, and I guess they were trying to tell a story with the fact that Great-O-Khan was doing okay with the workouts, but then by the time they got to the third one, he was getting really tired and he had to do it over because the referee told him to do his workout over because his form wasn't good enough and he was kind of like cutting corners with his workouts. And the idea was that Great-O-Khan was winning the match, but he was like too tired to actually succeed in the match, like to the point of actually winning it. And this played out in the finishing sequence where uh, Great-O-Khan was able to hit a choke slam on Ishimori in the final like 5 seconds. But then after hitting that choke slam, he just collapsed to the ground and couldn't get a pinfall in time. However, as he collapsed to the ground, he was holding the King of Pro Wrestling Championship, which Ishimori was running around with earlier and brought into the ring. And since the rule of last person holding the title wins the championship, that was what caused him to actually win the championship since he was holding the belt as the time expired. So, I mean, this is a match that was very similar to like what you would see in like DDT, like a very comedy style. One thing that I thought was, when I say it was like a DDT style, that's a very much a compliment. But what was unfortunate about it was that it felt like the actual punchline of it was clever and whatever, but the 10 or so minutes of wrestling that led to it just wasn't really thought out or interesting or creative at all. The 3 minutes, the three sets of 3 minutes especially, was just kind of run-of-the-mill wrestling. There was no real um it just felt like they were killing time essentially during those moments. And that's why I have like mixed feelings about this match. Like I think I'm not gonna say that comedy stuff like this has no place in New Japan because I think when it's well thought out and it's well put together, it's great. And on an undercard on a show like this where it's not a huge deal, I don't see a problem with having a comedy match like this. It just wasn't very well put together, and that's my main qualm with it was that it didn't seem too good, and a lot of it was really interesting and or what wasn't interesting, and you were just sort of sitting there like, okay, what's the punchline going to be like? What's the final match of the final minute of the match going to be like? Because that ended up being like the only real intriguing part of it. So Great-O-Khan's the new champion for the King of Pro Wrestling belt. Um, it'll be interesting to see what stipulation matches he's at later this year, I guess. Um, that belt sort of lives and dies on if the stipulation matches are interesting. And yeah, I personally enjoy the belt. I know it is easily like the most low importance belt, both in its prestige and its booking. But I think that sometimes you can get really fun stipulations from it, and it could be a big highlight. Um, you think of that Hinare Shingo Takagi match from last year. That was a really big highlight for the promotion in 2023, and it came from their smallest deal belt. It's it's very hit or miss, and this was certainly a miss in that case. All right, we're gonna go through some of the results from lower on the card. These were just the tag matches that we're building to uh future matches that are happening in the next month or so. We had the team of just five guys, that's Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Takamichinoku, and Yuya Uemura, beating Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito, and Yota Tsuji in 9 minutes. It was Bushi who tapped out in this match to a skull end from Sanada. It's funny, I see that in my notes, and I'm just because it was early in the morning and I was tired, my brain was still at like in 2023 for a moment because I was like, wait, Sonata was across from Bushi or something like that. But then I realized that yeah, they're not in the same faction anymore because it's not early 2023. That was an okay match. We saw the TMDK team of Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nichols, Shane Hastings, Zack Sabre Jr. face the big headline name of Kazuchika Okada and his team of Tomohiro Ishii, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Togi Makabe. This match is obviously building up the never open weight six-man tag team title match that TMDK is going to challenge for soon. But it was sort of hard to focus on that when this is Okada's first match since the news of his very soon departure from the promotion. It's it's weird. I mean, I talked about it in the column that I put out the other day, but it's so hard to sort of quantify how big of a loss he's going to be for New Japan. I don't think that currently right now there's any bigger name you could um suggest that would be a bigger loss for the promotion, even someone like Will Ospreay, and that's when you consider the extremely long amount of time he had in New Japan. This is Okada. The the many Wrestle Kingdom main events he had at Tokyo Dome, the numerous major title reigns, which lasted a long time, and all the G1 Climax tournaments that he won. He was just such a huge part of the promotion's image for the past decade. So losing him is bigger than any loss they could have right now, in my opinion. So, considering that the news of that broke only like 24 or so hours ago, it was such a bigger deal than the build to this match. And it was, for me personally, the only thing I was thinking about the entire time. Um, Zack Sabre Jr. won the match for his team with a leg lock on Makabe. Short match, nothing really too special about it. Of course, Zack Sabre Jr., who's not even involved in the six-man program, gets the finish on Makabe. Okada came back into the ring after the match, did a wave to fans, did a bow, his music played. Because when you think about it, he has all of January left and just I think like 3 dates in February left. So this is probably his last appearance in Nagoya. I would have to check the schedule, but I would assume that's the case. Lower on the card, we had a tag match where Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru beat El Desperado and Master Wato. This is to build the upcoming junior heavyweight title match between newly crowned champion El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So Kanemaru got the win on this card, or his team got the win, and it was Sho that scored the pinfall with a pile driver. This was a big night for heels winning, I guess, because you had Evil winning in the main event. You had Evil winning in the main event, yeah, and then these first three matches that opened the show, starting with this one, it was all heels winning. And House of Torture especially had a great night. They won this match. They won the opener, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, there's nothing else to really say about that. We're gonna be seeing that Desperado Kanemaru match in a few days. I'll be running down some future cards once we get through this. To preview the 5 versus 5 cage match happening as part of Will Ospreay's New Japan departure, the team of Alex Coughlin, Clark Connors, David Finlay, Drilla Maloney, and Gabe Kidd beat Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Henare, Jeff Cobb, and TJP. I put in my notes that I predicted that this would end in a brawl to promote how chaotic the cage match is going to be. I was wrong about that. But this match did have a brawl after the finish, so I feel like I get half marks there. Finley actually scored a clean win for the Bullet Club team, uh, earning a power bomb scoring a power bomb on Cal Newman to get the pinfall. I don't know if I necessarily get him scoring, like the leader of the faction that's known for cheating and doing dirty stuff, um, and who is currently promoting a tag match or a cage match, which is going to be extreme, winning clean. It's kind of odd, but at least he pinned the one person who's not going to be in the cage match, which is Newman. So that does make sense. Opening match of the card, Ren Narita and Yujiro Takahashi beat Shota Umino and Tomoaki Honma. This is to set up a future singles match between Narita and Umino. My thing here with this is like Umino is losing consistently to Ren Narita. The finish to this rivalry, there better be some great payoff for Umino because he is, like I've written before, the most buried man in New Japan right now, and it's pretty brutal to look at. He lost at Wrestle Kingdom against House of Torture. He lost again here. You just gotta wonder, like, how are they gonna turn this around for him? Because I would say that out of all the newcomer guys over the past 2 years, he's been the guy who's been like the most buried and like given the least amount of opportunities. Because between him and Ren Narita, they were both not given a lot of opportunities over the past year. But even Ren, you see more. Like, uh, in 2023, he had a Wrestle Kingdom match against Zack Sabre Jr. And something like that is the type of opportunity you're not seeing with Umino too much. You did see him go singles match in a singles match with Will Ospreay last year, but besides that, I don't know. He just feels like an incredibly buried person um in New Japan, and I hope that his feud with House of Torture somehow ends with him uh having something go his way for once. We also had one match that happened sort of like before the start of the show. It was a kickoff match where two young lions, Katsuya Murashima and Shomakato, faced off in a singles match. It was their first time, both of their first times in a one-on-one match on a New Japan card. They went 10 minutes for a time limit draw. They both seemed to have potential, and they were both noted by the broadcast as two smaller wrestlers compared to a lot of the young lions we've seen recently. So there's a rundown of the show. You know, like I said before, not the most notable show. Really, there's one headline coming out of it, and it's that it was Tama Tonga's send-off match. Besides that, everything on this was pretty skippable. Uh, am I going to be months from now talking about Great Okan's win over Taiji Ishimori or Phantasmo and Hikuleu's win over Chase Owens and Kenta? No, I mean this was just like a small deal card and just not the most life-changing, thrilling card either. So, but it wasn't a train wreck either. I mean, as you heard in my rundown, there was some decent stuff in the main event. Um, and there was other stuff too, I guess. Like, I don't know, it wasn't incredible, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever watched either. New Japan is back tomorrow with a show. They're doing a show in Nagahama. It's not televised, so you will not be getting any time limit writing or podcasting about it. It's headlined by a tag match between Los Ingobernables de Japón and Just Five Guys as they build the future rematch between Sanada and Tetsuya Naito. The next televised card is going to be on Tuesday. It's a Road to the New Beginning card in Korakuen Hall. The main event is going to be that aforementioned singles match between Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. I think these two guys are capable of having a great singles match. Um, Obviously, we will see how much House of Torture changes the quality of the match, but we'll have to wait and see. I have a hope that that match could be something fun. There's also a singles match between Sho and Master Wato, plus many other tag matches. We will be back with a podcast later this week, getting into that show and likely the other Road to the New Beginning show, which is also taking place in Tokyo. I will be back later this weekend, hopefully, with a column talking about New Japan. I want to do these like quick reaction pods as like a fast way to just get something out there the day of an event, and then that column writing can be sort of filling the gaps in that time between events. So we can have that mix of quick stuff running through cards, plus that sort of more reflective writing pieces talking about just, one part of a show or one major topic surrounding the promotion or things of that nature. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope to be doing more. I hope to be slowly getting my footing a little more with the podcasting. As you can probably tell by listening, this is not something I do every day, and I'm still learning the ropes, if you want to put it that way, for how to do podcasts. So if you enjoy the podcast, I hope you keep listening to them. I hope you keep supporting the blog. It's timelimit.substack.com, and keep your eyes there for what's next. And I hope to see you around the blog.